I caught my son and my best friend of 30 years plotting to steal my Montana land worth $50 million. What they didn't know was that I'd been recording their secret meetings for 6 months, and I was about to destroy both their lives. Before we start, don't forget to like this video, comment where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. Have you experienced something like this? Please let me know in the comments. My name is Emma. I'm 65 years old, and I live in Billings, Montana. And this is the story of how I discovered that my own son and my closest friend were not only plotting to steal my multi-million-dollar property, but were also having a secret affair behind my back, and how I made them both pay the ultimate price. The land in question wasn't just any property. My late husband Robert and I had purchased 2,400 acres of prime Montana real estate back in 1987 for what seemed like a fortune at the time, $800,000. Robert always said it would be valuable someday, but even he couldn't have predicted just how valuable. When the Federal Aviation Administration announced plans for a new regional airport hub, our land became the prime location. Overnight, property that we'd bought for $800,000 was now worth $50 million. Helena Morrison had been my best friend since 1991. We met at a church fundraiser, both of us young mothers trying to make ends meet while our husbands worked long hours. She was there for me through Robert's cancer diagnosis, held my hand during his chemotherapy treatments, and was the first person I called when he passed away 3 years ago. For over 30 years, Helena was more than a friend. She was my sister, my confidant, the one person in the world I trusted with my deepest secrets. My son Victor was the light of my life. At 28, he was charming, intelligent, and had always been my pride and joy. After his father died, Victor became even more attentive, calling me every day, visiting twice a week, helping me manage the property and my finances. I thought I was blessed to have such a caring son and such a loyal friend. I should have known something was wrong when they started showing up together. It began about 18 months ago. Helena, who had been spending more and more time at my house, started arriving at the same time as Victor's visits. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence. Then I started noticing little things, the way they looked at each other when they thought I wasn't watching, how their conversations would stop abruptly when I entered a room, the nervous laughter that followed. But I was grieving, lonely, and desperate to believe that the two people I loved most were just being supportive. I convinced myself I was imagining things. The first real sign came during a family barbecue last summer. I had gone inside to get more drinks when I heard Helena's voice through the kitchen window. She was talking to Victor near the garden shed, their voices low but urgent. "We need to be more careful," Helena was saying. "She's starting to notice." "Notice what?" Victor replied, but there was something in his tone that made my blood run cold. "The way we look at each other, the timing of our visits. She asked me yesterday why I always seem to arrive right when you do." I stood frozen in my kitchen, drinks forgotten, straining to hear more. "Maybe we should cool it for a while," Victor said. "Cool what? The relationship or the plan?" "Both, at least until we can get her to sign the development rights over." "Development rights?" My heart stopped. "What development rights?" "Victor, we've been working on this for over a year. The airport announcement could come any day. If we don't move fast, she might figure out what the land is really worth." I know. But if she gets suspicious, she won't. Look at her. She's been lost since Robert died. She depends on us completely. We just need to be smarter about it." I backed away from the window, my hands shaking so violently I could barely hold the drinks. My son and my best friend were planning something involving my land, something they didn't want me to know about. And from the way Helena had said, the relationship, it was clear there was more between them than I had imagined. That night, after everyone had left, I sat in Robert's old chair and tried to make sense of what I'd heard. The pieces were starting to come together in a way that made me physically sick. Helena's increased visits, Victor's sudden interest in my finances, the way they both kept bringing up how complicated it must be for me to manage such a large property on my own. But I needed proof. I needed to know exactly what they were planning and how far their betrayal went. The next morning, I drove to an electronics store in Billings and bought a small digital recording device. The sales clerk, a young man who reminded me of Victor, showed me how to use it, and recommended several spots where it could be hidden effectively. I told him I was having problems with contractors trying to overcharge me. Not entirely a lie, given what I suspected. I placed the device in the living room, hidden behind a picture frame that faced the couch where Helena and Victor usually sat during their visits. The battery life was 8 hours, and the memory could hold up to 48 hours of conversations. I learned to change it regularly, downloading the files to my computer and storing them in a folder I labeled garden planning. For 3 weeks, I caught nothing but normal conversations. I was starting to think I had imagined the whole thing, that grief had made me paranoid and suspicious of the people who loved me most. Then, on a Thursday evening in late August, Helena stopped by unexpectedly. She said she was just checking on me, but something felt different. She seemed nervous, constantly checking her phone, glancing toward the window. When Victor arrived 20 minutes later, supposedly just dropping by, I knew this wasn't a coincidence. I excused myself to make tea, but instead of going to the kitchen, I slipped upstairs to my bedroom where I could hear their conversation through the old heating vents that connected the first and second floors. "Is she upstairs?" Helena's voice came through clearly. "Yeah, making tea. We don't have long." "Victor, I'm getting worried. She's been asking questions about the property taxes, wanting to see the assessments. What if she finds out about the airport survey?" "She won't. The survey team was very discreet. But Helena, we need to move faster. My contact at the FAA says the official announcement could come within months." "How much faster?" "I think we need to get her to sign a power of attorney, medical reasons. We can say she's been having memory issues since Dad died." "Victor, that's fraud." "It's not fraud if we're protecting her interests. Look, once the airport gets approved, this land will be worth a fortune, but it'll also bring development, noise, traffic. She's 65 years old. Does she really want to deal with all that? We're doing her a favor. And the fact that we'll split $50 million has nothing to do with it?" Victor laughed, and the sound made my stomach turn. "Of course it does, but that doesn't mean we're not also helping her." I heard Helena move closer to him. "I love you, you know that, but sometimes I feel guilty about your mother. She's been so good to me over the years." "She'll be fine. We'll make sure she's comfortable. Set her up in a nice senior community. Make sure all her needs are met. She'll probably be happier not having to worry about the property." "A senior community?" Helena's voice was soft, almost seductive. "Will you visit me when I'm old and gray?" "You'll never be old and gray to me," Victor replied, and I heard the unmistakable sounds of them kissing. I sat on my bedroom floor, my hand pressed to my mouth to keep from screaming. My son, my baby boy, was not only plotting to steal my land, but was having an affair with my best friend. A woman old enough to be his mother, a woman I had trusted with my life, was manipulating him and using their relationship to rob me blind. But the worst part was yet to come. "Victor," Helena said after a moment, "there's something else we need to discuss." "What?" "Your mother's will." "What about it?" "She redid it last year, remember? After your father died. I was there when she signed it." "Right. She left everything to me. What's the problem?" "The problem is that if anything happens to her before we get control of the land, you inherit everything, but the FAA deal might fall through. We need her alive and cooperative, at least until the contracts are signed." "Helena, what are you saying?" "I'm saying we need to be very careful, very gentle. We can't push too hard or too fast. She needs to trust us completely." "She does trust us." "For now, but Victor, if she ever finds out about us." "She won't. But if she does, we lose everything. The land deal, the money, each other. I can't go back to my old life, Victor. I can't pretend to be her friend while living in that tiny apartment, struggling to pay bills. I've had a taste of what life could be like with you, with that kind of money." "You won't have to. We're so close, Helena. Just a few more months." That's when I heard them move toward the stairs. I quickly got into bed and pretended to be asleep when Victor knocked on my door to say goodbye. "Mom, I'm heading out. Helena's leaving too." "Okay, sweetheart," I called out, my voice somehow steady. "Drive safely." After they left, I went downstairs and retrieved the recording device. Everything was there. Their plans, their affair, their casual discussion of manipulating me into signing away my rights to land worth $50 million. But I didn't act immediately. Instead, I did something that surprised even me. I started planning. Over the next several months, I played the role of the grieving, confused widow perfectly. I started asking Helena for advice about simple things: what kind of insurance to buy, whether I should update my will again, how to handle the complicated property taxes. I let Victor take over more and more of my financial decisions, always asking for his guidance, always expressing how grateful I was to have such a caring son. And all the while, I was documenting everything. I hired a private investigator, a former FBI agent named Marcus Dalton, who specialized in financial fraud. I told him I suspected my son and friend were planning to take advantage of me, but I didn't tell him about the affair or the full extent of what I knew. I wanted independent confirmation. Marcus's report, delivered 6 weeks later, was even worse than I had imagined. Not only were Helena and Victor planning to manipulate me out of my land rights, but they had already taken preliminary steps. Victor had been forging my signature on documents. Helena had been researching senior care facilities, and together they had met with 3 different real estate development companies about potential partnerships. But the most shocking discovery was about their relationship. Marcus had photographs of them together at hotels, restaurants, and even a weekend trip to Seattle. The relationship had been going on for over 2 years, since just months after Robert's death. While I was grieving my husband, my son was seducing my best friend and planning to rob me. "Mrs. Patterson," Marcus said as he handed me the report, "this is one of the most calculated fraud attempts I've seen. The fact that it's your own family makes it particularly cruel. What do you want to do?" "I want to destroy them," I said quietly. "Both of them, completely." Marcus raised an eyebrow. That's a strong response. Are you sure?" "Marcus, they've stolen 2 years of my life. They've turned my grief into a weapon against me. They've made me doubt my own sanity, my own judgment, and they're planning to steal $50 million from me while putting me in a nursing home. Yes, I'm sure." "Okay, what did you have in mind?" I smiled for the first time in months. "I'm going to give them exactly what they want, and then I'm going to take it all away." The plan I developed was simple in concept but complex in execution. I would pretend to fall for their manipulation completely, sign over limited power of attorney to Victor, and even help them broker a deal with a development company. But every step of the way, I would be documenting their fraud, gathering evidence, and setting up legal traps that would not only stop them from stealing my land, but would leave them facing criminal charges and financial ruin. The first phase began in January. I started showing signs of confusion and forgetfulness. Nothing dramatic, just small things that would support their narrative that I was becoming incapable of managing my affairs. I would forget appointments, mix up names, ask the same questions repeatedly. Helena and Victor, of course, were very concerned about these developments. "Emma, honey," Helena said one afternoon while we were having tea, "Victor and I have been talking, and we're worried about you." "Worried? Why?" "Well, you've been forgetting things lately, important things, and managing this big property all by yourself, it must be so stressful." "It is getting harder," I admitted, playing my part perfectly. "Sometimes I feel so overwhelmed." "What if Victor could help you more? Maybe take over some of the business side of things, just temporarily, until you feel more like yourself." "Do you think that would be okay? I don't want to be a burden." "Oh, Emma, you could never be a burden. We love you. We just want to help." Victor, who had been listening from the kitchen, came in with a concerned expression. "Mom, I've actually been researching some options. There are legal ways I could help you manage things without taking away your independence." "Like what?" "Well, there's something called a limited power of attorney. It would let me handle the business and financial stuff while you focus on your health and happiness." I pretended to consider this. "Would that be permanent?" "Not at all," Victor said quickly. "You could revoke it any time you wanted. It's just a safety net." "And Helena thinks this is a good idea?" Helena reached over and squeezed my hand. "Emma, I think it's a wonderful idea. Victor is so smart about business, and he loves you so much. You'd be in good hands." "Okay," I said finally, "if you both think it's best." The next week, Victor brought a lawyer to the house, not my longtime attorney, but a young man named Craig Henderson who specialized in elder care planning. The power of attorney document he presented was exactly what Marcus had predicted, much broader than necessary, giving Victor control over not just day-to-day financial decisions, but also the ability to sell property, sign contracts, and make major financial decisions on my behalf. I signed it, but not before making sure that Marcus had photographed every page and that our conversation was being recorded by devices hidden throughout the house. Phase 2 began immediately. Within days of signing the power of attorney, Victor and Helena were meeting with developers. I knew this because I was having them followed by Marcus's team, and also because they were getting sloppy about hiding their plans from me. "Mom," Victor said one evening, "I've been thinking about the property." "What about it?" "Well, it's a lot for you to maintain, and with property taxes going up and the cost of upkeep, I'm wondering if we should consider selling part of it." "Selling?" I tried to look confused and worried. "But it was your father's favorite place." "I know, Mom, but Dad would want you to be practical. And honestly, I think there might be some good opportunities coming up." "What kind of opportunities?" "Development. There's talk about new infrastructure in the area, airport expansion, that kind of thing. If we position ourselves right, we could make a lot of money." "How much money?" Victor exchanged a look with Helena, who had been suspiciously present for this conversation. "Hard to say, but potentially a lot. Enough to set you up for life in a beautiful place where you wouldn't have to worry about property maintenance or any of that stuff." "Like where?" "Well, there are some beautiful senior communities, places where you'd have friends your own age, activities, medical care right on site." "You want to put me in a nursing home?" "Not a nursing home, Mom. A luxury senior community. Think of it like a resort where you'd live permanently." I pretended to think about this. "And you and Helena think this is best?" "We do," Helena said firmly. "Emma, you've worked so hard your whole life. You deserve to relax and enjoy yourself." "Okay," I said finally, "if you think it's best." Over the next 3 months, I watched them work. Victor met with developers, negotiated preliminary terms, and even started the paperwork for putting me in Golden Sunset Manor, a senior facility in Bozeman that cost $8,000 a month. Helena helped by constantly reinforcing the narrative that I was becoming more forgetful and less capable of living independently. But they made a crucial mistake. They got greedy. Instead of waiting for the official FAA announcement, they decided to move forward with a development deal based on insider information. Victor signed a preliminary agreement with Westmont Development Group that would pay us $45 million for the land, with a $5 million deposit paid immediately upon signing. The day Victor brought me the contracts to sign, I knew it was time to spring my trap. "Mom," Victor said, spreading the papers across the dining room table, "this is it. This is the deal we've been working toward." Helena was there too, of course, her hand resting on Victor's shoulder in what she probably thought was a subtle gesture of support. $45 million, I said, looking at the contract. "That seems like so much money." "It is a lot of money, Mom. More than enough to take care of you for the rest of your life." "And you'll get some too?" "Well, as your power of attorney, I'll manage the funds. But yes, Helena and I will be compensated for all the work we've put into this." "How much?" Victor hesitated. That's complicated, Mom. There are management fees, consultant costs, legal expenses." "How much, Victor?" Helena stepped in. "Emma, sweetie, you don't need to worry about those details. Victor will handle everything. I want to know how much my son and my best friend are planning to steal from me." The room went completely silent. Victor's face went white, and Helena stepped back as if I had slapped her. "Mom," Victor said carefully, "I don't know what you mean." "I mean this," I said, pulling out a tablet and pressing play on one of the recordings. Their voices filled the room, clear and damning. "How much faster? I think we need to get her to sign a power of attorney. Medical reasons. We can say she's been having memory issues since Dad died." "Victor, that's fraud." "It's not fraud if we're protecting her interests." I let it play for 30 seconds before turning it off. I have 6 months of recordings, Victor. I know about your affair with Helena. I know about your plans to put me in a nursing home. I know about the forged signatures, the secret meetings with developers, and the FAA airport project insider information you've been using. Helena was backing toward the door. Emma, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been sleeping with my son while plotting to steal my land? That you've been pretending to be my friend while planning to rob me of $50 million? It's not like that, Victor said, but his voice was shaking. It's exactly like that. And now you're both going to pay for it. I picked up my phone and dialed a number. Marcus, it's Emma. They just signed the fraudulent contract. Yes, bring them in. Within minutes, my house was filled with FBI agents. It turned out that Marcus had been working with federal law enforcement for months, building a case against Victor and Helena for elder fraud, conspiracy, and mail fraud. The Westmont Development Group was also under investigation for bribery and corruption related to the FAA airport project. As the agents read Victor and Helena their rights, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 3 years, complete and total satisfaction. Mom, Victor called out as they led him away in handcuffs. I'm your son. How could you do this to me? You stopped being my son the day you decided to steal from me. You're just a criminal who happens to share my DNA. Helena didn't say anything. She just stared at me with a look of such hatred that I almost smiled. The legal proceedings took 8 months. Victor and Helena were both convicted on multiple federal charges. Victor received 5 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay $2.3 million in restitution. Helena received 3 years and was ordered to pay $1.8 million. But the financial penalties were just the beginning of their punishment. The scandal destroyed both of their reputations completely. Victor lost his job, his apartment, and most of his friends. Helena's ex-husband, who had been paying her generous alimony, successfully petitioned the court to stop payments based on her criminal conviction. Her adult children cut off all contact with her. More satisfying than their criminal convictions was watching their relationship implode under pressure. By the time the trial started, they were blaming each other for everything. Victor claimed Helena had seduced and manipulated him. Helena claimed Victor had pressured her into the scheme by threatening to end their relationship. The truth, of course, was that they were both greedy, selfish people who deserved each other and deserved their fate. As for the land, the FAA deal did go through eventually, but not with Westmont Development Group, which was disbanded after the corruption investigation. Instead, I negotiated directly with the federal government and received $52 million for the property, $7 million more than Victor and Helena had tried to steal from me. I kept $10 million for myself and donated the rest to organizations that fight elder abuse and fraud. I also established the Robert Patterson Foundation, which provides legal assistance to elderly people who have been victimized by their own family members. I never saw Victor or Helena again after their sentencing. Victor wrote me letters from prison claiming he was sorry and asking for forgiveness. I returned them all unopened. Helena made no attempt to contact me, which was probably wise. 2 years later, I received a call from the Montana Department of Corrections. Victor was being released early for good behavior. The caller wanted to know if I had any concerns about his release or if I wanted to be notified of his whereabouts. No, I told them. Victor Patterson is not my son anymore. He's just another criminal who tried to steal from me and failed. What he does with his life now is not my concern. I moved to a smaller house in Billings, closer to town and easier to maintain. I made new friends, real friends who liked me for who I am, not for what I own. I started dating a retired judge named William, who makes me laugh and treats me with genuine respect. Sometimes people ask me if I regret being so harsh with Victor and Helena. They suggest that family should forgive family, that friendship should overcome greed, that I should have given them a second chance. To those people, I say this. Victor and Helena didn't make a mistake. They didn't have a moment of weakness or poor judgment. They spent 2 years carefully, methodically, planning to steal everything I had worked for my entire life. They were going to put me in a nursing home and steal $50 million from me while pretending it was for my own good. That wasn't a mistake. That was evil.